My name is Leona Caldwell. I'm 34 years old, and on Christmas Eve, I learned something I think I had always known but never wanted confirmed. In my father's version of the future, there was no space left for me. He didn't yell. He didn't lose control. He said it calmly, like he had already practiced the words in his head 100 times. One moment, I was in my parents' house just outside Chicago, helping set up decorations, adjusting lights, arranging plates, pretending everything was normal. The next moment, I was standing still, phone in my hand, listening to him explain why my absence would make his life easier. Not temporary distance, not we need space, permanent removal. And the strangest part, I didn't feel shocked. I felt still. Because when you grow up in a family like mine, you don't get discarded suddenly. You get used slowly, strategically, until the moment your independence becomes inconvenient. So I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I didn't ask why. I just said, if that's what you want, I understand. Then I packed my bag, got in my car, and left. No drama. No tears, just silence. But what they didn't realize was that behind the scenes, I had been holding together more than they ever acknowledged. And by the next morning, I quietly removed myself from everything that depended on me. No threats, no warnings, just absence. By Christmas night, my phone told a different story. 36 missed calls, and one message from my father's lawyer. There's a serious financial and legal issue. Call me immediately. That's when I realized something important. They hadn't just lost a daughter. They had lost something they didn't even know they were depending on. And the real problem? They were about to find out exactly what that was. But what they didn't understand yet was how deeply my name was tied to everything they were about to lose. My family always described me the same way. Difficult, cold, too serious. The kind of person who asked uncomfortable questions at the wrong time. What they never said out loud was that I was also the reason their problems didn't turn into disasters. I work as a documentation risk analyst for a financial firm in Chicago. My job is simple to describe but hard to ignore. I find the cracks before things break. Missing numbers, weak explanations, financial gaps hidden behind polished language. I look at things people hope no one looks at too closely. And for years, my father joked about it, called it just paperwork, said I got paid to worry too much. But every time something needed reviewing, every time something didn't quite add up, he called me. This time, it was a property in Michigan, a lake house, not just a purchase. No, with him, nothing was ever that simple. It was a symbol, a statement, proof to the world that he had made it. On paper, everything looked clean. Down payment check, reserves check, structure presentable. But underneath, it was the same pattern I had seen my entire life. Confidence built on selective truth. And quietly, my name had been part of that structure. Not as an owner, not as a borrower, but as something more dangerous. Credibility. People trusted files more when they knew I had looked at them. And my father relied on that. What he didn't understand was that credibility only exists as long as consent does. So on Christmas morning, I did something very simple. I removed mine. Formally, clearly, completely. Emails sent, threads exited, documentation recorded. No emotion, just precision. And almost immediately, things started to stall. Questions came in, answers didn't. Confidence disappeared. Sitting alone in my apartment, I realized something almost ironic. I hadn't broken anything. I had just stopped holding it together. And by the time my phone started exploding that night, the damage was already in motion. I didn't answer the calls right away. I just stared at the screen. 36 missed calls, most from my father, some from my sister, a few unknown numbers. That last part mattered. Unknown numbers usually mean one thing. The problem has grown beyond the family. The voicemails followed a pattern I knew too well. First anger, my sister accusing me of ruining Christmas. Then panic, call back, it's serious. My father's messages were even more predictable. At first, defensive, then rewriting history. It was a misunderstanding. You took it the wrong way. We need to fix this as a family. That phrase almost made me laugh, because less than 24 hours earlier, I wasn't family anymore. I was expendable. But now I was necessary again. And that shift, that speed, that was the part that settled everything inside me. Then came the message that mattered. Gavin Doyle, my father's attorney, we're dealing with a serious legal and financial issue. Call me. Not emotional, not personal, legal, financial. That told me everything. The problem had moved into a space where feelings didn't matter anymore. Only facts did. So the next morning I called, and within minutes it became clear. The lender had flagged inconsistencies. Reserves didn't match. Liquidity was questionable. The deal was collapsing. And then I asked the only question that mattered. Is my name still being used? After I withdrew, there was a pause. Short, but revealing. Then the answer carefully worded. Yes, they had continued letting people believe I was involved. My credibility was still being used, without my permission. And now, they needed me back, just for a small clarification, just to restore confidence. But I understood exactly what that meant. They didn't want help. They wanted access. Access to the one thing that had been holding everything together. And for the first time, I said no, completely, calmly, finally, because what they were asking for wasn't support. It was permission to keep using me. A few days later, I heard something interesting. My father still planned to attend a business networking event, as if nothing had changed, still talking about the lake house, still performing success. That's when I made a decision, not for revenge, for clarity. I went. The venue was polished, warm, expensive, the kind of place where reputation matters more than truth until truth walks in. And when I entered, my father saw me immediately. His expression didn't collapse. It tightened, just slightly, but I noticed. I didn't go to him right away. I took my time, spoke to a few people, let him wonder, because anticipation is often more powerful than confrontation. When I finally approached, he was speaking with a small group, including someone from a banking circle. Perfect. He smiled like nothing was wrong, like we were normal, like Christmas Eve had never happened. And then I asked, calmly, did you inform the lender that I'm no longer involved? Silence. Immediate. Heavy. He tried to laugh it off, said this wasn't the place. I nodded. Then it should have been handled earlier. Then I asked the second question. Did you disclose the outstanding debt when they asked about reserves? That's when the room shifted. People weren't listening anymore. They were analyzing. My sister snapped at me, called it humiliation. I looked at her and said, it stopped being private when my name kept being used without my consent. That line landed hard. My father called me emotional, predictable. So I asked one final question. Were you still using my name after I withdrew in writing? No escape this time. No performance. And before he could answer, someone else asked it for him, directly, professionally. That was the moment everything cracked. Not loudly, but permanently, because reputation doesn't collapse with noise. It collapses with doubt. And once doubt enters the room, it doesn't leave. But what came after that night wasn't chaos. It was something much worse. What happened next wasn't dramatic. No shouting, no public downfall, just consequences. Slow, precise, unavoidable. The Michigan deal collapsed within days. The lender pulled back. The file didn't hold. And with it, the image my father had been building disappeared. But the damage didn't stop there. Once trust weakens, everything gets heavier. Old debts resurfaced. Credit tightened. Vendors stopped being flexible. The structure he had built on confidence alone started failing under scrutiny, piece by piece, not all at once, which made it worse, because every step forced him to see it happening. He sold assets, let people go. Eventually, he gave up a large part of his business for far less than it was worth, not because I destroyed him, but because I stopped protecting him. And that distinction mattered. My sister had to adjust too. No more safety net, no more quiet fixes. Reality replaced assumption. Even my mother changed quietly, because the role of it's just stress stops working when the damage becomes visible. And me, my life got quieter, better. A few weeks later, I closed on my own condo. No complications, no hidden risks, just something solid, mine. And for the first time, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not relief, not pride, peace. Because I finally understood something clearly. Family is not permission. Love is not access. And being needed is not the same as being valued. My father said he'd be better off without me. So I gave him exactly what he asked for. And the truth? It cost him far more than he ever imagined. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply stop saving people who keep using you.